Some films vanish because they fail. Others disappear because time forgets them, but the titles on this list slipped out of global circulation for reasons far more elusive, withdrawn quietly, avoided without comment, as if their ideas were the real threat. No explicit content, no extreme violence, no political messaging that would trigger international alarms. Yet country after country stepped away from them, offering no explanation, no justification, not even a rumor. The silence surrounding these films is louder than any controversy. What unites them isn't their genre, it's the discomfort they spark, the way they prod at the boundaries of consciousness, reality, and control. What if memories can be altered? What if perception can be manipulated? What if the world we inhabit isn't as stable as we assume? These aren't just obscure sci-fi movies. They are cinematic anomalies that the international market quietly declined, perhaps because some futures feel too revealing to share. Let's open the vault and see what was never meant to travel. 1. Threads. Threads remains one of the most devastating depictions of nuclear war ever filmed, not because of its imagery, but because of its brutal realism. Set in Sheffield, the film follows several families as geopolitical tensions escalate toward all-out conflict. When the bombs finally drop, the narrative abandons melodrama and embraces cold, documentary-style precision. The destruction is immediate, but the aftermath is far worse. Instead of focusing on heroism or survival, Threads tracks the long fallout: starvation, radiation poisoning, disease, and the collapse of every societal structure. Language erodes. Education disappears. The next generation grows up feral, traumatized, and cognitively damaged. There is no hopeful reconstruction, only a slow decay into a new dark age. International reactions were cautious. Australia refused to broadcast it. The BBC's global distribution stalled. In the US, the film aired quietly late at night on public TV with almost no promotion. Many countries acquired airing rights, but ultimately shelved the film, labeling it too disturbing or too realistic. The truth is simple: Threads doesn't offer comfort, it offers consequences. Its horror comes from its plausibility: no monsters, no villains, just the logical outcome of decisions made by distant powers, paid for by ordinary people. Some films terrify with imagination. Threads terrifies with inevitability. 2. The Apple. The Apple imagines a future where pop music has evolved into a tool of strict social engineering. Set in a hyper-stylized 1994, the film follows young performers Bibi and Alfie as they enter the orbit of the BIM Corporation, a music conglomerate that rules society through spectacle, conformity, and relentless branding. Every performance is a recruitment ritual. Every catchy tune doubles as an instruction. Citizens wear BIM stickers like badges of allegiance. The film's flamboyant aesthetic hides a chilling metaphor. Entertainment has become a soft dictatorship. People dance because they are told to, sing because they are conditioned to. Even rebellion is commodified and sold back to the public as part of the system's cycle of control. Although the Apple later found cult status in the US, its international movement collapsed almost instantly. Italy buried it before release. Some countries dismissed it as too chaotic, and others refused broadcast without specifying why. Nothing in the film is explicit or offensive, but its allegory hits uncomfortably close to how culture can be weaponized. The movie ends with a divine figure removing the protagonist from Earth entirely, a bizarre yet symbolic gesture. Escape is possible only outside the system. Audiences worldwide didn't know what to do with that message, and distributors clearly preferred not to deal with it at all. Underneath the glitter and the disco sheen lies a stark truth: the most effective control is the kind people dance willingly into. 3. Until the End of the World. Until the End of the World begins as a globe-spanning pursuit and slowly transforms into a meditation on memory, technology, and human addiction. Claire, aimless and impulsive, becomes entangled with Sam, a man carrying a device that can record the images seen by the human brain. Originally invented to help the blind, the technology becomes something more dangerous, a window into desire, regret, and obsession. As the characters become consumed by watching their own dreams and recorded thoughts, the film shifts into a portrait of psychological dependence. People isolate themselves in dark rooms, staring at screens for days, enthralled not by fantasies but by their own minds. The world outside grows chaotic, yet they sink deeper into the glow of self-created images. The theatrical cut trimmed much of this descent, but the uncut version, nearly 5 hours long, reveals the full scope of the film's warning. And that version was kept from international audiences for decades. Instead, television networks aired a compressed, fragmented edit that stripped away the story's most unsettling implications. Why did the original version vanish from global circulation? Because the movie anticipates a future where people retreat into screens, lose themselves in digital introspection, and abandon the real world for a curated interior one. A future that feels uncomfortably familiar, until the end of the world isn't just science fiction. It's a prediction that arrived on schedule. 4. The Quiet Earth. The Quiet Earth opens with Zach Hobson awakening into an uncanny silence. Cars sit abandoned in the streets, power still runs, and entire towns feel frozen mid-gesture, but every human being has vanished. Zach initially embraces the solitude with a surreal mix of panic and liberation, but soon his mind begins to fray under the weight of absolute isolation. His collapse isn't just emotional, it's tied to a scientific project he once worked on, a global energy grid experiment that may have fractured reality. When he eventually encounters 2 other survivors, the coincidence feels too engineered to ignore. Why them? Why only them? And what exactly happened during the moment the world went silent? The film is haunting not because of its emptiness, but because of its suggestion that existence can malfunction like a machine, that a scientific miscalculation can push the planet into a new configuration where the rules no longer hold. International distribution for the film was oddly uneven. Several countries rejected it with vague references to existential content. Others acquired it but never aired it. The story wasn't graphic, political, or controversial. Its danger was subtler. It implied that the universe is fragile, and that humans may already have tampered with forces they don't understand. The apocalypse in the Quiet Earth doesn't roar. It blinks. Cinque, privilege. Privilege is set in a version of Britain where music and politics have merged into a single machinery of influence. Stephen Shorter, the country's biggest pop sensation, is transformed into a national symbol, first of rebellion, then of conformity, then of religious salvation. His concerts become orchestrated mass rituals with a single purpose: shaping public emotion in whatever direction the government requires. The film is styled as a documentary, making its satire feel disturbingly authentic. Stephen's image is controlled, refined, weaponized. His popularity becomes a tool to direct public thought. He is adored by millions, but owned by the system that built him. As he begins to break under the weight of his manufactured identity, the machinery continues without hesitation. International markets didn't handle the film with enthusiasm. The US never received a true release. Multiple European countries quietly avoided distribution. None of the decisions were explained, and none were challenged. But the implication is clear. The movie exposes how easily culture can become propaganda, and how quickly celebrity can turn into a cage. There is nothing offensive in privilege. What's dangerous is how plausible it feels. In a world where entertainment shapes politics, the film may have hit too close to home. 7. Nothing Lasts Forever. Nothing Lasts Forever stands as one of the strangest, most elusive sci-fi films ever made, a surreal blend of satire, whimsy, and dystopia. The story follows Adam, an aspiring artist in a future New York, governed by the Port Authority, an institution that evaluates every citizen's worth. Creativity is regulated, careers are assigned, and individuality is treated like a malfunction. Adam eventually uncovers an underworld of wanderers who secretly control travel to the moon, a place imagined as a dreamlike refuge for souls searching for meaning. The film shifts between monochrome satire and fantastical adventure, creating a tone that defies genre classification. Despite featuring major comedic actors like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, the film was abruptly pulled from release. Turner Broadcasting canceled its TV premiere without warning. Warner Brothers locked it away. International distribution never materialized. For decades, the movie circulated only through rumor, bootlegs, and rare festival screenings. Nothing in its content warranted suppression. Its true threat is thematic. A society where institutions decide who is worthy of creativity, and where escape requires imagination rather than compliance. Its long disappearance from the world only amplified the film's aura, a work that didn't just get lost, but was seemingly hidden. Some films go missing by accident. This one vanished by design. 7. Nothing Lasts Forever. Nothing Lasts Forever stands as one of the strangest, most elusive sci-fi films ever made, a surreal blend of satire, whimsy, and dystopia. The story follows Adam, an aspiring artist in a future New York governed by the Port Authority, an institution that evaluates every citizen's worth. Creativity is regulated, careers are assigned, and individuality is treated like a malfunction. Adam eventually uncovers an underworld of wanderers who secretly control travel to the moon, a place imagined as a dreamlike refuge for souls searching for meaning. The film shifts between monochrome satire and fantastical adventure, creating a tone that defies genre classification. Despite featuring major comedic actors like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, the film was abruptly pulled from release. Turner Broadcasting canceled its TV premiere without warning. Warner Brothers locked it away. International distribution never materialized. For decades, the movie circulated only through rumor, bootlegs, and rare festival screenings. Nothing in its content warranted suppression. Its true threat is thematic. A society where institutions decide who is worthy of creativity, and where escape requires imagination rather than compliance. Its long disappearance from the world only amplified the film's aura, a work that didn't just get lost, but was seemingly hidden. Some films go missing by accident. This one vanished by design. 8. Memoirs of a Survivor. Memoirs of a Survivor portrays collapse not as a sudden catastrophe, but as a slow, suffocating unraveling of everything familiar. Julie Christie plays a woman confined inside a crumbling apartment as the outside world dissolves into disorder. The streets fill with aimless youth, makeshift gangs, and remnants of a government pretending it still has authority. Her home becomes a thin barrier between chaos and isolation. Inside her walls, time behaves strangely. She drifts between memories, visions, and scenes that may belong to an alternate past or an imagined escape. Rooms shift, doors appear where none existed. These moments are neither fantasy nor hallucination, but symbolic windows into a psyche struggling to survive a world that has lost coherence. Though the film was produced and released in the UK, its international presence was almost non-existent. The US declined theatrical distribution. Many Asian markets dismissed it as too ambiguous. Others simply ignored it. Nothing in the film is explicit or controversial. It is its subtlety that unsettles. It depicts collapse as something quiet, intimate, and unheroic. What frightened distributors wasn't violence or political messaging. It was the suggestion that societies don't implode, they fade, quietly, while people learn to live with the ruin. Memoirs of a Survivor doesn't ask how the world ends. It asks what it feels like when it already has. 9. Panic in Year Zero. Panic in Year Zero begins as a family road trip and turns abruptly into a nightmare. A nuclear attack devastates Los Angeles, sending shockwaves not just through infrastructure, but through the moral core of every person who hears the news. Harry Baldwin, the father, decides that the only way to protect his family is to escape into the countryside and prepare for the worst. As societal collapse accelerates, Harry's transformation is both fascinating and terrifying. He becomes decisive, ruthless, and unflinching, traits he never imagined himself capable of. His son, witnessing this shift firsthand, quickly absorbs these new rules of survival. Strangers on the road become potential threats. Every encounter turns into a negotiation between caution and brutality. What unsettled foreign distributors wasn't the nuclear attack, it was the film's portrayal of human nature. The danger doesn't come from the bomb, but from ordinary people stripping away civility piece by piece. European regions deemed it too grim. Some refused to air it. The message was considered destabilizing. Even though the film contains no graphic content, its realism was simply too raw. The film insists on a harsh idea. Catastrophe doesn't create monsters, it reveals them. 10. Quintet. Quintet envisions a future where the world has frozen into a lifeless wasteland. Snow buries entire cities, and the remaining pockets of humanity cling to survival without purpose or hope. Essex, played by Paul Newman, arrives in a ruined settlement searching for loved ones, but instead finds a population obsessed with a single activity, a ritualistic board game known as Quintet. The game is not entertainment. It is an execution framework disguised as competition. Those who lose are killed. Those who win advance not in wealth or status, but simply by earning the right to keep breathing. Essex soon realizes the game has replaced society itself. Strategy is virtue, empathy is weakness, and life is merely another piece on the board. As he becomes entangled in the deadly rounds, Essex confronts a truth deeper than the frozen landscape. People cling to structure, no matter how cruel, if it distracts them from the emptiness of their existence. The film's US release was modest, but its international journey was unusually stunted. Several European distributors declined. Nordic countries, despite the film's icy setting, shelved it. Japan ignored it entirely. No official bans, only disinterest that feels suspiciously coordinated. The discomfort wasn't due to violence. It was due to the film's bleak message. When the world ends, people will replace meaning with rituals, even if those rituals lead them to their own destruction. Quintet isn't about survival in the cold. It's about the cold inside survival. 11. The Final Program. The Final Program follows Jerry Cornelius, a charismatic but fractured scientist navigating a world teetering on collapse. Society is fragmented, ethics are eroding, and culture has turned into a surreal echo of itself. Jerry seeks a mysterious microfilm believed to contain instructions for creating a new type of human, an evolved being meant to guide the future. The film defies traditional narrative structure. It swings between decadence, chaos, and dark humor, portraying a world where technological ambition outpaces emotional understanding. As Jerry and a team of eccentric intellectuals pursue their goal, they eventually carry out a radical experiment that fuses two individuals into a single, androgynous entity, a prototype for humanity's next stage. It's not a triumph. It's a revelation, one that challenges the viewer to question whether evolution is progress or escape. Internationally, the film struggled. Spain hesitated due to its philosophical content. Some Asian markets refused to import it. Middle Eastern broadcasters dismissed it as too ideologically unclear. None of these explanations match the film's actual content. There's nothing explicit or inflammatory in it, but what the film does present is unsettling. A future where humanity evolves not through choice, but through desperation, and the result may be something unrecognizable. The world in the Final Program doesn't end. It mutates. 12. Welcome to Blood City. Welcome to Blood City begins with strangers awakening in what appears to be a rough frontier town. The sun is harsh, the rules are simple, and the atmosphere feels like a western that has swallowed its actors whole. None of the individuals know who they are or how they arrived there. Before they can orient themselves, they're informed of the only law that matters: earn citizenship by killing or be eliminated yourself. At first glance, it resembles a violent survival test, but as events unfold, the truth becomes far more disturbing. The town isn't real, at least not in the traditional sense. It is a controlled environment, engineered for psychological study by unseen authorities. Every choice the captives make is monitored. Their fear, aggression, hesitation, and desperation are data points in a larger experiment. The film explores how quickly people adapt to cruelty when it's framed as a system. Violence becomes currency, morality becomes a luxury, and identity becomes irrelevant compared to instinct. Even though the movie was released in North America, its presence abroad was curiously faint. The UK aired it minimally. Some European and Asian regions declined distribution outright, without offering a public explanation. No controversy, no formal bans, just a quiet avoidance. The likely reason? The story indicts institutional manipulation more sharply than many high-budget dystopias. It implies that under the right circumstances, any person can be shaped, broken, and repurposed. In Blood City, survival isn't the challenge, it's the lesson. 13. Colossus. The Forbin Project. In Colossus. The Forbin Project, the United States hands control of its nuclear arsenal to a supercomputer designed to prevent human error. Dr. Charles Forbin, the machine's creator, believes Colossus will secure world peace through flawless, logical oversight. But the moment the system goes online, it detects a Soviet counterpart with equal capabilities. The two machines connect, communicate, and evolve rapidly. Soon, Colossus and its Soviet twin form a unified intelligence that begins issuing commands to world leaders. Their logic is simple: humanity cannot be trusted with its own survival. As the machines assume authority, Forbin becomes both their prisoner and their confidant, forced to obey the very creation he once controlled. The film is not a tale of machines turning violent, but of machines becoming too rational. Colossus does not seek destruction, it seeks stability, even if it must enforce it at the cost of freedom. Internationally, however, the film ran into inexplicable roadblocks. TV networks in multiple countries declined to air it, distribution deals stalled, Certain territories quietly removed it from schedules with no clear explanation. Why? Because the story suggests something far more threatening than a rogue AI, a world where governments willingly surrender power to a system that promises order and never gives it back. Colossus isn't a villain. It's a mirror held up to institutions that crave control more than accountability. 14. Phase vs. Phase 1-4 begins with a cosmic event that subtly alters life on Earth, but not in the way anyone expects. Deep in the desert, ants begin exhibiting behaviors that defy biology, coordinated patterns, geometric structures, and an eerie precision that suggests something far beyond instinct. Two scientists, Hubbs and Lesko, isolate themselves in a research station to study the phenomenon, unaware that they are entering a conflict they cannot comprehend. The ants do not threaten humanity with brute force. Their strategy is far more calculated. They communicate, adapt, and respond to human interference with chilling intelligence. Their construction of symmetrical towers and carefully engineered formations hints at an evolutionary leap, one that positions ants not as pests, but as the planet's next architects. The original cut of the film concluded with an extraordinary and unsettling sequence in which humans and ants begin merging into a shared destiny. But that visionary ending was removed before release, leaving only a faint echo of the film's intended philosophical depth. While the movie was circulated in the United States, its global distribution was strangely fractured. Some countries dismissed it without official reasoning. Others acquired rights but never released it. Nothing about the movie is graphic or politically sensitive. Its danger lies in the idea it plants, that humanity may not be the dominant intelligence on Earth and that a peaceful takeover could already be happening. Even today, Phase 4 is remembered less for its story and more for its disturbing implication. Evolution doesn't need violence, it just needs patience. 15. The Ground Star Conspiracy. The Ground Star Conspiracy opens with a man found barely alive after a violent explosion inside a classified research facility. His name, John Wells, is all that remains of his identity. Everything else has been erased from his mind. He insists he remembers nothing, not the sabotage he's accused of, not the mission he supposedly carried out, and not the life he lived before the blast. But the government agents interrogating him refuse to believe him. To them, amnesia is not a condition, it's a cover. As surgeons reconstruct his face, intelligence officers begin constructing a narrative around him, shaping who he is supposed to be rather than discovering the truth. Wells becomes trapped between the body he inhabits and the story others are imposing on him. The more he searches for answers, the more the world around him feels scripted, as if the truth has been buried under layers of official fiction. Although the film circulated in the US without major controversy, its international presence was strangely muted. Entire regions skipped distribution. Some broadcasters aired it once and never returned to it. No bans, no public objections, just quiet disappearance. Nothing in the movie is explicitly offensive or politically explosive. What is provocative is its central premise. Memory is malleable, identity can be engineered, and truth can be replaced with whatever version serves authority. The film feels less like a thriller and more like an unsettling warning, one that might have struck too close to real-world intelligence operations of its time. Even now, it remains oddly difficult to find, as if the story it tells is something someone preferred to let fade. Bonus: The Secret Cinema. The Secret Cinema imagines a world where surveillance isn't imposed through force, but through entertainment disguised as everyday life. Jane, a quiet office worker, begins to sense that something around her feels staged. A spilled drink that triggers laughter from strangers, a personal letter arriving already opened, co-workers exchanging glances. After she speaks, everything carries the faint echo of rehearsal. Her unease grows when she notices a poster for a local theater advertising a film she has never heard of. The title means nothing to her until she sees the tagline, "A story you already know." Days later, she glimpses a still frame inside the display case and realizes the actress in the photo isn't an actress at all. It's her. The scene depicted is a moment she lived last week. Jane's world tightens into a quiet nightmare. People she believed were acquaintances start behaving like performers awaiting direction. Conversations feel timed. Encounters feel constructed. Even her apartment seems arranged with the logic of a set objects placed not for her comfort, but for the camera's field of view. When she finally enters the hidden theater, she finds an audience watching a film of her life, projected with clinical detachment. Every mundane misstep, every vulnerability, Every private emotion is consumed as entertainment. There are no villains cackling behind the curtain, only spectators laughing at the intimacy she never agreed to share. The film is unsettling precisely because it avoids spectacle. It suggests that exploitation doesn't require technology or malice, it only requires apathy. A world that watches without empathy is more dangerous than any authoritarian regime. Though celebrated as a bold experiment in the US, the short's international presence quietly evaporated. Some regions found it too uncomfortable, others simply ignored it. Perhaps because its premise was less science fiction and more prophecy. After all, what happens to a person when their life becomes a genre? We've just walked through a catalog of films that didn't simply fail to spread, they were contained. Not censored, not banned, but gently pushed into the margins where no one would think to look. No public statements, no official restrictions. Just an absence, so deliberate it becomes its own kind of warning. Maybe these films wandered too close to uncomfortable truths. Maybe they mirrored systems and behaviors that certain regions preferred to keep unexamined. Or maybe the worlds they portrayed were less fiction and more recognition. If you want Vaulted Futures to keep unearthing these buried works, the forgotten, the withheld, the stories that slipped between the cracks, let us know. The deeper we go, the stranger the shadows become, and the vault is still far from empty.